Good afternoon. It's been a funny day today. It's Sunday. I answered a few emails, did a bit of housekeeping, then I went to church. And when I was coming out of church, the minister stood at the door and she said, "Oh, I smell fire." And I had heard the fire brigade earlier on, and I thought, oh dear. And then she said, "And look at the smoke." And the sky over near where I live was just really dark grey with smoke. And so immediately, because I lost my house in 1983, well, the children and I lost our house, and right away I went into, oh my goodness, what do I have to do? Have I got a fire plan? All that kind of stuff. Well, I have got a fire plan. It's put the cat into a basket, grab my computer and leave. That is my fire plan. And I thought, well, make sure the basket is all organised, make sure the computer is ready to be taken, and I'm out of here. And anyway, before I left, before I decided what to do, I looked at the computer onto the bushfire websites and there was nothing. And I thought, well, that's unusual. And I had to go next door to take something into the neighbour, so I thought, oh, well, I'll go and see what she's doing. So I went in and I said, I can't find anything about the fire on the website. And she said, that's because there isn't one. And I said, what do you mean there's no fire? She said, well, I've just come through Gisborne, and that's on the other side of the mountain. And on the other side of the mountain, it's thunderstorms, the rain is pelting down, and that smoke you can see, that thick smoke you can see, is actually a very thick cloud bank. Warm on this side, cool on that side. Not smoke at all. So what seems to be in our life often is not. I thought it was a very good lesson. So we're doing Awakening to Prosperity number 2, the Buddha's teachings on prosperity. First off, I really want to say thank you to all my fantastic subscribers. I'm still pedaling towards the 100, although we got to 40 really quickly, but it slowed down somewhat. I'm noticing this guy called Joe Sugg, or Sug, whatever his name is, and he's got 10 million subscribers. So I went and had a look at his site, and it's just total nonsense. I don't know why people even watch it. But anyway, he's got 10 million subscribers. I just want 100. So if you can get your friends to subscribe, it just means that then we get a direct address, which will be much easier than saying to people, Google Jane Hope Williams YouTube. We just get something nice and easy that you can go direct, but we have to be up there and have 100 subscribers before they will let us do that. So I hope that not only are you watching regularly and hopping on there at least every couple of days, but that you're taking notes, because I look at this as a teaching opportunity, not just something to fill in time. These teachings on prosperity segue beautifully from the Purusharthas that we were doing earlier on. Duty, prosperity, pleasure and freedom. You might have thought, in the little that you know about the Buddha, and very few of it know terribly much, that he mostly spoke about self-denial, and that he was giving his talks like standing on a mountain talking to people, that he was the best. No, he was not just talking to saints and scholars, he was talking to you. He wasn't just talking about suffering, he wasn't just talking about impermanence, he wasn't just talking about the denial of pleasure. You may have thought that he discouraged people thinking about or achieving success, but success was really important to the Buddha on all levels, his own success and that of others. So the teachings that he offered were on interpersonal relationships, business relationships, marketing, decision making, personal development, everything that is needed to build a community that's happy and functional. So if you're starting a family or starting a business or even looking at your own life, having teachings that will help you on a personal development level, how to market, how to make money, how to move through your life, they're going to be really important to you. And that's what the Buddha talked about. Unlike Jesus, Buddha never set himself up to be a representative of the divine. No. So his teachings, because he wasn't doing that, his teachings had to be useful and they had to be demonstrated as being useful. It wasn't just okay for him to talk about these things. If you went off and tried it, you had to be able to come back to the community and say, I tried that and it worked. And that's how larger communities happen, because of word of mouth. They didn't have Google. People often ask me, was Jesus a Buddhist? Well, he could have been. I certainly went to places in India where they believed Jesus had visited, and they had relics and they had footprints and various other things. He was, he may or may not have been a Buddhist, but he was a revolutionary and he was a healer and he was a prophet and he was a teacher. And by his own admission, he was the Messiah. But what they believed a Messiah meant in those days and what we believe one means now is quite different. You know, he was an itinerant teacher who brought the message, and from that point of view, he was the Messiah. There is convincing evidence that he at least understood Buddhism. The evidence follows two streams, firstly historical and then in text, because in those days Jesus and India and Israel were quite close. And if Jesus didn't go to India, then certainly India came to Judea and all around that area. India came to Jesus. They were very, very heavily into trading. They were big traders. And he would have been introduced to Buddhist teachings. We don't know if he studied Buddhism or had the opportunity, but he was not wandering around with cotton in his ears. He would have picked up something. He had a very inquiring mind, and he talked to philosophers. There's striking similarities between the life of Jesus and the life of Buddha, even the birth of Jesus and the birth of Buddha. But although he never identified himself as a Buddhist, he could be said to be one. We can suspect that he studied Buddhism. A lot of the prophecy and a lot of things that he said and he did were derived from Buddhist texts, although Christians wouldn't like to think that. You know, it's just mystifying to me. there are Buddhist elements in the Gospel of John and the Gnostic Gospels, and certainly in the teachings of the Essenes. And Palestine, together with lots of parts of Asia Minor, was inundated with Buddhist propaganda for 2 centuries before Christ even came along. If you went back and examined records, you would see that Buddhist traders and Buddhist monks and Buddhist philosophers who lived in that area, they talked to other members in the community. It was a cross-cultural trading mecca. So the Essenes, very Buddhist little group, were part of the spiritual environment of Palestine at the time of Jesus. So Buddha lived in an age, Buddha himself, who was much earlier, lived in an age also during which hundreds of thinkers and religious leaders were competing for space. Sort of like the web, when you go on the web. Who do you know who's real? You don't. I get my students tell me a lot of rubbish because they've read it on the web from someone who's plonked Swami in front of their name or got a good looking website. Doesn't mean the message is good. It just means there's so much information out there, it's hard to tell which message is good. Some of the campaigners in Buddha's time were against spirituality. Some were for it. Some people convinced others that enlightenment and after-death experiences and reincarnation were just myths. So Buddha was the teacher who had to help them to get a better life now, because that's what people wanted. They wanted a better life now. They didn't want to wait till later. Christians might be happy to wait till later, but the people that Buddha was preaching to, the atheists in that community, they wanted their good fortune now. They didn't want to put it off till later. They didn't care about the 13 virgins afterwards. They wanted them now. So his ordained community couldn't have survived without the daily support of an affluent lay community. Because the Buddha and his supporters, if you've ever been to a monastery, one of the nicest monasteries I was at was the Wat Buddha Dhamma outside of Gosford, actually. Very beautiful place. And that is supported by a lay community. Before the lay community came along, we managed somehow, there was a lay community of people who got there later than everyone else. So if you were just there for a weekend, you actually were part of the lay community. You got to help to do things. And they needed that because the ordained community just didn't have the time to do that. That wasn't their job. So neither the Buddha nor his disciples were aesthetes, I suppose that you would call aesthetics. They were social campaigners, and they lived a moderate life. They trod the middle path, avoiding indulgence and avoiding self-denial. The Buddha freely accepted gifts of houses and lands from his supporters, and some of his best supporters were the wealthiest. Kings and wealthy merchants. They were his best supporters. Given his social background, success and happiness in daily life became a constant teaching. Buddha didn't come out of a disadvantaged lifestyle. He mightn't have liked his lifestyle, But that was because there was too much affluence, not because there was not enough. He didn't live on a rubbish dump, he lived in a palace. So 45 years of teaching and vigorous social involvement left an invaluable instruction. He left an invaluable instruction called the Sutta Pitaka, Suttapitaka. He never imposed limitations on his followers to be successful, and clearly instructed them to strive for success. He set no limits on personal wealth, but he did say that there was a way to be wealthy. It wasn't just about squeezing your neighbour for that extra dollar. It was being wealthy like a bee, going out and getting your wealth without damaging the flower. That was the example that he used. So the bee helps pollinate and he gets the pollen to make into honey. And the flower is better off, not worse off, for the visit of the bee. The freedom he offered to become prosperous hinged on two things. Firstly, you should not harm or deceive customers whilst you are becoming wealthy, or in your efforts to become wealthy, like the bee. No harming, no deceit. And the next admonition was to use the wealth properly. Once again, Buddha said, like the rain nourishes the earth, individual wealth should foster a whole lot of people. He regarded wealth as essential because saving could be used in the event of misfortune, and he saw those very clearly linked. And he linked them with this really, really good equation. And I've used it for the most of my life, and it's a very good equation. You have some income, whether you've received it from an inheritance, your weekly income, your housekeeping money, something in a jam jar, whatever it is, that income should be divided into 4 portions. The first 2 portions should be used as an investment. They can be used as an investment, sort of putting them in the bank to make money, or they can be invested in yourself, using the money to make money. So if you're in the business of being a graphic artist and you need a new printer, then investing in a new printer will allow you to make money. If you're a graphic artist and you invest it in a fur coat, that will not help you make money. One portion should be saved, and the last portion should be used for living expenses and paying bills. Anything left over from paying the bills, you can play with. The first 2 portions are not to play with. They're for investment. Those who do not follow these practices, he said, do not deserve to be wealthy. He stressed time and time again that wealth is a clear source of happiness for lay persons. Somebody once said, I forget who it was, I've been rich and I've been poor, and rich is better. To achieve happiness in this way, they must earn the money the right way and spend the money the right way. And to end, I'll just say this. The Buddha said, I found out two important principles: not to be content with what I had achieved, and not to give up the effort for the highest achievement. Right effort is the first step towards success. Right effort brings benefits and happiness to a lay person. If you want a wonderful book to read about using the Buddha's ideas in terms of business, then a very good book is called The Diamond Cutter, and it's by Michael Roach. He wrote the Essential Sutras, which we use in our school, but it's called The Diamond Cutters by Michael Roach. It's a fantastic book. It will be one that you will use often, and that is based on the Diamond Sutra. So look at The Diamond Cutter. You'll really enjoy the book. Thank you very much for subscribing. And please go to my site www.myyogabooks.etsy.com to find out more about what I've written in the areas of yoga and personal development. Oh, and my paintings. www.myyogabooks.etsy.com. And I'm sure you know my website, yogabeautiful.com.au. Thank you so much. Namaste. I'm going out into the fog. Have a lovely day. Or what's left of that. Thank you.